Welcome. This is all minus one quick shots. All right, folks. So there have been many things going on in the news today with the Capitol insurrection, and primarily the released medical examiner's report saying that the U.S. Capitol officer Brian Sicknick died of stroke the day after riot medical examiner rules. Meaning, the riot had little or nothing to do with his condition at all. In fact, I would say it had nothing to do with it. The guy died of natural causes. And here we have a picture of Maxine Waters for some reason, but we're going to talk about her in a minute as well. So, here from USA Today, Washington, U.S. Capitol Police Brian Sicknick died of stroke a day after the January 6 incident. And medical examiners ruled Monday the chief medical examiner, Francisco Diaz, attributed the death to natural causes rather than a homicide committed by another person. Diaz found that Sicknick died 42 of acute brainstem and cerebral infractions due to acute basilar arterial thrombosis. He died of a stroke. Diaz released a timeline saying Sicknick was sprayed about 2 p.m. on January 6th, collapsed about 10 p.m., and then died at the hospital at 9:30 p.m. on January 7th. The pepper spray cannot be attributed to this, folks, whether he was sprayed or not. And trust me, having worked with pepper spray many years, I've never seen this happen, and I have been part of thousands of medical incidences. Need I remind you that what happened at the Capitol was mostly folks walked in because they were allowed to come in. There were some people who were agitators, for sure, but for the most part, the people who were the patriots who were saying, hey, government, listen to what I have to say, were just walking through. And one of those people died, Ashley Babbitt. She was killed by a federal police officer or a federal security guard, one way or another, who we have the name of and yet will be facing no charges. She's the only person that died that day of any sort of violent action. The other folks, the incidents they died of were unrelated to any sort of violence, to include the one that was supposedly trampled to death who had a methamphetamine overdose, from my understanding. So, from the Washington Post, similar article, Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick, who engaged rioters, suffered 2 strokes and died of natural causes, officials say. And I'm reading this one because of what it has to say in the beginning. And here we go, almost the exact same wordage. The ruling released Monday will make it difficult for prosecutors to pursue homicide charges in the officer's death. 2 men are accused of assaulting Sicknick by spraying a powerful chemical irritant at him during the siege, but prosecutors have not tied that exposure to Sicknick's death. Well, if this is the case and every time someone dies within a 48-hour period of being pepper sprayed, it must be attributed to the pepper spray. But more importantly, what we are seeing here is that they are lamenting at the Washington Post that people cannot be charged with homicide because a man had a stroke. This is opportunism, and it is absurd. They are trying to capitalize on someone's natural death by basically pinning it on their political opposition. This is the gross sickness that is our modern day media. And then they go around and go, but we're journalists. You can't attack us. We're exposing the truth. Like the, feckless fools that they are, because frankly, folks, they know what they're doing. It's all about controlling you in the narrative, and they believe this. Trust me. You cannot work at CNN, MSNBC, The Washington Post, New York Times, wherever it may be, big outlets like that. You cannot simply be working there and not be aware of what you are doing. Now, you might not like it. You might grin and bear it. But that's on you, folks. And trust me, if you are at those organizations and you are grinning and bearing it, you are not doing anyone in the world a service. In fact, you are doing a disservice to allow this misinformation to continue to go on. But very few people ever stand for their principles. So with that, talking about lack of principles and Poor journalism. Let's go here to CNN. Officer Sicknick suffers stroke and died of natural causes, DC Medical Examiner. And just like the Washington Post, similar verbiage. In fact, these articles are pretty much clones of each other. It says the medical examiner, Francisco Diaz, didn't note any evidence that Sicknick had an allergic reaction to chemical spray or list any internal or external injuries, according to the Washington Post, which first reported the ruling. Still, Diaz told the newspaper that all that transpired on January 6th played a role in his condition. How? This is the same thing that's going on with the George Floyd trial when the medical examiner was asked, if you had not seen that video, would you have ruled this as Chauvin's fault? And the answer was no. I would have considered it a fentanyl and overdose and heart attack. This is what they do, folks. This is what folks do. The ruling all but ensures that the Justice Department won't be able to pursue homicide charges in Sicknick's death. In March, 2 men, yada, 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 were arrested and charged with assaulting Sicknick. Where's the evidence? Yet to see that released. Attorneys for Qatar and Tanios declined to comment on CNN's response to the Post report. The pair traveled to D.C., So here they are switching the framing, taking it away from the officer who died of natural causes, and are putting it on the men and how terrible it is that the men cannot be prosecuted for murder when they are completely and utterly innocent of such a crime. This is utterly gross. And speaking of gross, here CNN sort of got it right. This is from archive.com, but originally from, let's see here. Well, if my thing wants to work. This is originally from CNN. CNN Politics, The Point. And here we have Minnesota. The rest of the country is on a knife's edge waiting for a verdict in the murder of the Chauvin trial, right? Coming after 4 years of the president who weaponized race and racist. Did he? Or did you, CNN, weaponize the terminology of race and racist to whip people up into a fury, much like you just did with the natural death of a random officer who happened to be working the day of the Capitol incident, and then the next day ended up passing away? Like, are you sure that it's not your framing that's the problem? Because I don't recall Trump saying, let's go kill all of the black people and all of the Hispanics and all of the brown people and all the minorities. In fact, as far as I could see, Trump did more for minorities than anyone in the presidential office has done in who knows how long, decades, if not more. Now, I'm not one to get all into the idea of, special protected classes, especially based on politics or anything of the sort. But there was a time, of course, and we know this, that there was a time that some people were second-class citizens in the United States, and that really has not been true since at least the 1960s, outside of, maybe on a personal or smaller level. And that is between individuals, and the government, in my opinion, doesn't have a right to deal with that. And if you want society to be all-inclusive and encompassing of all types of people and whatever else, perhaps you shouldn't try and cram it down everyone's throat and tell lies and manipulate things to do so, because when you have folks like me or others out there who are awake and aware of what is actually going on, we see this and we go, oh, you're just trying to cause more division so you can push your propaganda down the people's throats. And so in the end, this whole article goes on and it talks about Maxine Waters basically doing something really, really stupid. And she almost caused, and may still have yet caused, a mistrial of the Derek Chauvin trial, which I actually think would be great because the environment is too politically charged to have a fair trial right now. He is going to have an appeal eventually. His sentence, if he is sentenced to anything, including manslaughter, will be reduced most likely through appeal. Of course, those processes take years. They take time. So it's hard to say. I think if the jury is honest, if they are principled, they will give him a not guilty verdict. Either way, whether he is guilty on all counts or no counts, there will be riots. And Maxine Waters has done and said stupid, ridiculous things like this before because she's an idiot, guys. She is an idiot. She has been in Congress forever. She basically is a do-nothing. She's there representing Compton and the ghetto, and yet lives in a rich neighborhood nowhere near it. She's not doing anything for her people. What she is doing, though, is stirring up tensions. And that is not good. So, just real quick, this is the restated, renamed, retitled article. Maxine Waters just inflamed a very volatile situation. So that's what's on CNN now. This is what it originally was. Makes it much, much worse. Last I looked through this, they really didn't change or edit anything. But again, I just wanted to cover these things because the news is constantly trying to shift the narrative toward they are trying to take care of the truth. They are trying to expose the truth to the people. And they're trying to tell you who is good, bad, and indifferent in these situations. And the reality is that the media is not unbiased. Duh. None of us are. Which is why you just need to admit you're biased up front. But aside from doing that, how about let's just focus on facts. Let's not report things that are untrue. Like the people dying on January 6th. They all died of things outside of the riots. Heart attacks, meth overdose, the next day a stroke. They all died of things that had nothing to do with people going there and protesting. Now, there was violence. I think that the police were quite aggressive when they decided to get aggressive with the protesters. I think that some people were out of hand. We know that CNN hosted a radical left-wing person who wanted to vandalize and trash and burn down the Capitol building. Yet that individual basically has been memory holed. And we are still focused on capturing people for something that did almost no destruction. And the only person that did die was at the hands of the feds themselves, who, again, we don't have any video footage of, really. We have video footage of the after she was shot or the one side of the shooting, but we don't have any footage of the angles that the Capitol building has in their security cameras. But that story is buried. It's memory hold because, once again, she has the wrong politics because this is always about power. And if you have the wrong politics, you are not allowed to have any real power. And all power in this world lies in Satan, folks. It lies in the kingdom of this world. Now, God grants him that power. This goes back to the book of Job to some degree, and of course it is greater in the text. This is why Satan was able to offer Christ all of the world. But we have to understand that even though this is the way, we are supposed to live differently. And we can't become enticed with these things, and we can't become downtrodden, and we can't see these things continually and just go, oh man, just more hypocrisy. Oh man, more double standards. Oh man, more fake news. Oh man, what's the point? Let me just get black-pilled and not even care. That, my friends, is the road to nihilism, of course, and that is letting the left win. You cannot let them win. You must become more. You must become better. You must start within yourself, right? You do things, get active, participate. Even if you can't participate, right? Say we can do things through the internet or whatever, but if you can't do it in person, if you cannot donate money, if you cannot do physical labor to help certain people out, if you cannot go out campaigning or whatever it is that you might think is a positive influence in the world, then do at least this one thing. Constantly try to seek the truth and improve yourself and be, in the end, ultimately truthful with yourself. Because no matter what happens, no matter how bad things get, no matter how crazy the lies are, no matter how many cities are burned down, no matter how far the left goes, no matter if they start gulags or lining people up on the wall, they cannot take your mind. And if you are going to survive any of this, it is your mind and it is your willpower. And hopefully, those of you that are in the faith, the attitude or the spirit, the very Holy Spirit of God embedded in you that will carry you through. Because we will continue to see these stories. I have stories I've seen already that perhaps I could have brought up here about predictions Trump made. They'll probably be on the show tomorrow night over at the Ends Justify the Memes. Predictions that Trump made about everyone getting the vaccine or the vaccine being available, the prophylactic, that is, for the coof, by April. And every media outlet told him no. And right now they're reporting that vaccinations, the prophylactics, the experimental prophylactics will be available to everybody. And here it is, April. Because the news isn't news, folks. The news is propaganda. The news is a narrative to manipulate your mind. The news is there to brainwash you. The news is there to lull you asleep and make you think like the masses. And if you are thinking like in the masses, you are not thinking. That's all I have for today, guys, folks. This has been all minus one quick shots, and I wish you all well.